Ready? Good afternoon. Regular session, Nogales Housing Authority Board of Commissioners meeting, 3 p.m. Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, City Hall Complex. Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, will you please lead us? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Director's report number 3. Micah, you got the report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and real quick too, if I ask, I'm still kind of congested right now, so my ear's not that great, so if I ask anybody to repeat themselves, I hope you don't take offense to that. I'm just trying to get my senses back working here. So for the month of November, we saw an increased number of move-ins for our low-income housing program. We saw an additional 2 move-ins come in. We also took a move with regards to something we have in the policy to be able to close the 1 and 2 bedroom wait list. And what this allows us to do is to make sure that those who are on the wait list actually have a chance to get housed. Right now, keeping that open, those who applied years ago, it's about a year-long wait list. Those who applied a year ago because of the point system would basically never have a chance to get housed. And so we looked at that. We were able to close just the 1 and 2 bedroom wait list, and it gives everyone a fair shot at being housed, especially some of our local, those in need of local support. So we went ahead and did that as well. For the Housing Choice Voucher Program, we have 15 available units. We didn't get any move-ins or vouchers issued this month. Unfortunately, our wait list went down 1 because the individual on our waiting list passed away. That's why it went down from 40 down to 39 this past month without any move-ins. I've directed staff. It's been kind of a change in thinking at the office. A lot of the processes that happen with, especially the Housing Choice Voucher Program, there's a lot of delay that's built into it, whether it be you mail out an issue for a meeting, for the first initial meeting, and then wait 30 days for them to reply back to you. There's some built-in processes there, and so I've instructed staff to make sure that no matter what happens, we can make sure those processes continue to move. And at the end of the day, my priority and our priority is housing individuals. And so sometimes we can get distracted by necessary things like the Arizona Department of Housing wants something from us, or HUD needs a document from us. But it's important to make sure that in getting those documentations, we don't stop the process of getting people housed. And so that's kind of what our priority has been. It's been a little shift in focus for staff, but I think it will serve us well in the long run. And every single Monday, I have a document that staff gives me to give me the update on where we are at with each of the applicants, where they're at in the interview process, what's going on with that, help keep things up to speed and keep things going. And then you also see there too, we also have with the rent payments, a good news, hopefully a trend in the right direction. We'll see what happens in the month of November here. But a good news in that we are bridging the gap in rent payments received from October 2019 to October 2020. We're about a $4,000 difference, as opposed to last month it was about a $6,000 difference. We're also seeing more rent payments received, meaning that it might not be the full amount, but people are attempting to start, paying their the monthly rent again, which I think is a good sign. Any questions at all with the director's report?
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, Micah. Going back to the public housing, you said that you want to make it fair for all the people on the waiting list because some people have been there for over a year, and other people come in and because of the preference status, they get housed first. Is there any way that you can talk to HUD and tell them that if you could give them a preference for the date and time of application, like anybody that's been there on the waiting list for 6 months can get extra points, for its preference. so they can, they don't get overrun by the new ones?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, there is a date and time preference for that. Unfortunately, there's other preference points that seem to kind of outweigh that process, where there is a first come, first served type of preference there. Other factors such as family composition, working eligibility, local preferences, veteran preferences, and things like that sometimes serve to the point where even if you are on the waiting list for a number of years,
But this would be like,
you won't get housed. But there is a preference point in there for that. Unfortunately, it's not enough to make a sizable difference.
yeah, it's for date and time, but I'm talking about anybody that's been there for over 6 months can get an extra.
The extra preference for six. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I'll bring that up to Mark. I think that's a very very valuable point right there. I can take a note of that and bring it to HUD.
Okay, and on the voucher program,
Mm-hmm.
we haven't moved anybody in since September?
No, we haven't. And part of the reason for that has been a couple of things. First off, we had a loss in one of our staff members' families that kind of put a damper on that in terms of getting the process to continue to go. That was kind of an unforeseen event that happened that kind of stalled things out as we devoted their attention to take care of their family. But since then, we haven't had any. Since then, we are in the works of doing that. We're still keeping the trains running right now. What we're trying to do is at least we've had a number of individuals who have either failed to be eligible for assistance or have refused assistance or rejected assistance. But we're trying to make sure that no matter what, that the trains keep moving. And again, it's been kind of a culture shift for us to keep to at least keep the processes moving no matter what.
Are those applicants dropped from the waiting list when they don't, when they're not eligible or they don't show any interest?
No, they will be dropped from the waiting list if they refuse or are otherwise ineligible for assistance. We do drop them from the waiting list. But sometimes for those to drop them, it takes a considerable amount of time in terms of just calendar days because you have to go through a notification process, which I think is at least 30 days long. That way, if they have if they want to dispute the claim that they are no longer eligible, you have to provide them with an opportunity to be able to do that.
Well, if they don't respond within 5 days of getting the notification that they're eligible and they don't show up in 5 days, they automatically drop from the list, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So you got 39 applicants and you have 15 vouchers available? And the waiting list is closed, right?
Yes.
So out of those 15 vouchers, is there any vouchers out right now?
Vouchers out. I believe we have right now 5 individuals who are in the final stages of the voucher process, as far as getting the final paperwork completed, coming in for final interviews, and things like that. Some of the applicants, we had one that was sick and had to reschedule. We had other ones that had surgery and had to reschedule. So there's been a couple of kind of unforeseen hang-ups that happen with that.
Has HUD said anything about the 92% that we're not at 97?
Yes. So I've talked with HUD about that specifically as well, just to see what kind of guidance they were going to give me, what other best practices other cities have done right now with regards to that. And HUD let me know, they said this is something that's not unique to Nogales. Cities across and public housing authorities across Arizona are facing the same thing with the COVID pandemic and not able to get people into appointments or people being hesitant to come in. A lot of the processes that we have, for instance, something as simple as being able to get documentation from the Social Security Administration can be hard to find these days with their offices being closed. And so they said, continue to document the efforts you're taking, and at the end of the day, understand we are in the middle of a pandemic, so just document it, do the best you can, and try to keep the trains rolling.
Well, hopefully HUD will waive that from the CMAP, right? 92.
Yes. Correct. I don't know, I mean, with CMAP specifically, I know right now they're not doing CMAP for us this year. When they come back and resume CMAP, I think it'll be up to HUD to determine how far back they go, what they're gonna do with that, kind of determination with that. But I have been in quite frequent communication with HUD on this issue.
That's all.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Michael.
Is there any more questions? Go ahead, Councilman.
Just a question, Mike. How often do you go through the whole list? You have 39 people waiting for months and years. I mean, do they all just call in, or do you have to? How do you run a list like that for years?
So, Councilman, the 39 list is for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the Section 8 program. The 1 and 2 bedroom list that has years of applicants on that, I'm referring to the low income program. So, but with being able to run those lists, I look at that list and look at updates to that list every Monday, just to make sure I see what's going on and to keep my thumb on that process.
But I mean, do you call the people? I mean, I can't see how somebody just hangs out for a year waiting for an apartment.
Yes, every single year we send, and this is true for the low income and the Housing Choice Voucher Program, every single year we send a notification to those who have been on the list for at least a year, asking if they would still like to be
But this is just
on
what, once a
the
year?
list.
You let it go for
And
a
so they
year?
reply to that every single year.
So somebody can be on the list for 11 months and they might have already moved out of town or whatever, and you don't know about it or something like that?
Yes, unfortunately that happens somewhat frequently, especially with things like change of phone numbers, and that's the reason for built-in delays. Something as simple as changing a phone number can cause us to significant delay in being able to reach out to someone. So someone can change their phone number and not inform us, and we have to go through find an emergency point of contact, reach out to point of contact, hope that the point of contact can get in contact with the original applicant, and then have the applicant reach back out to us. Again, those are things that it's unfortunate, but it unfortunately happens. There can be some
Is
sort of
that the way
delays
it's
and
always
sometimes people
been?
forget to let us know.
I'm sorry, but Hector, is that the way it's always been? You wait a year before anybody really gets completely off that list?
Yes, well, now 39 people on the waiting list is very low, but years before, we had 200 people on the waiting list, so we would be sending them letters constantly, notifying them if they're interested in staying on the waiting list, or if they're still in the area or in the community.
And that's the way it's run, the whole state? Is that the way it's run in housing? Everybody runs it that way? They have lists that run that long?
Well, what happens, sorry, Michael, let me answer that for you. What happens is people come in every month and check the waiting list. And if they have any questions, they'll ask the specialist there, what's going on with the waiting list, and they'll bring them up to date on the information. But
They put a little check on there that they're still active?
right, but yeah, they see their name on the list, and then they ask, how come the list hasn't moved, and then they'll give them an explanation. But by HUD rules, you have to notify them every year. It's the applicant's responsibility to be checking every month to see where their status is. And
So they sign for something like that, where they say they have to get a hold of you every month?
they don't have to if
You
they
understand
don't
that?
want to, but it's their responsibility. So,
And just a question, in section 8 for a 2-bedroom house, what is the pay? That's a section 8 from the city,
I think you're doing the fair market rents today, right?
Go. Say it again, so I couldn't quite hear you, sir.
I think you're having the fair market rents today on the agenda.
Yes, our fair market rents are on the agenda, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Micah, Councilman Diaz,
Yes, sir.
what I'm trying to get at right now when you're talking about people being on the waiting list for a year and what you're talking about right now, Is there any liability issues with that somebody gets bypassed and they give it to somebody else? When the other person, changed their phone number, they couldn't, they can't be gotten a hold of or anything like that? Is there any liability issues or the housing on something like that? That people might come back, why did you pass me over and you gave it to somebody else that hasn't been on a waiting list as long as I have? Is there no liability
No.
with it?
Councilman Diaz, as long as we do things by the book of business, by our policies, which we have been very careful to do, there's no liability with that. We make sure everything's done by the book, so whether it be the point preference or how people are taken from the waiting list, everything is done by policy. We'll make sure we do everything by policy.
Good, and another question that I, kind of wondering about it. When somebody gets dropped off the list, is there any way, like we at the city of Nogales, send the people a certified letter saying that you're gonna be dropped from the list, we haven't heard from you in a year, so on and so forth, and that kind of covers you a little better? Just by sending to the last known address, if it's returned address unknown, then you have something to back it up, like you did everything possible to get a hold of these people and they're done. I don't know if that's a good thing to do or not.
Yes, Councilman, that is the final step of the process.
Oh, okay.
The final step is sending them a letter to the address we have on their record. Sending a letter to them saying that you are going to be dropped off the waiting list unless you respond in 30 days.
Okay, good, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilman Varela.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment that you made, Mike, that caught my attention here during the dialogue and the presentation is, you said that there was a kind of a standstill in your office because there was a death in the family of an employee. Do you not have backups? Because I see that situation happening, and I understand it, but a lot of people are being penalized because there's no backup in your office. With you not being there, does everything come to a standstill? Nothing is done until you get there? Or do you have something in place where there's backups to people in case of an emergency so that the people that are waiting aren't being penalized by waiting longer?
Yes. So prior to my time here, I don't know if there was a system in place there. We've been able to kind of test out some of these backup situations through things like COVID. So far, I think we're the third individual in my office to test positive for COVID. So we've been able to kind of test out these processes, but like anything else, sometimes it's more trial or more error than trial. So the last one with the death in the family kind of showed again where we needed to step up, where the fault was, and what kind of things we need to do better. And one of the things I did as a result of that was having every single Monday taking a look at that waiting list and seeing what was going on with that every single Monday. I have a philosophy of that at the end of the day, I'm the director. I'm not here to blame staff. I'm not here to blame anybody else. My name's at the top. The responsibility's on me, right? And so I wanted to make sure that no matter what happens, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's someone testing for positive for COVID, whether, no matter what unexpected thing that life throws our way, I am prepared and ready no matter what. And so even with, even sitting here with COVID, on Monday, I got an email with that waiting list, and I made sure I looked over it, so I'll make sure I'm on top of things no matter what. And so we're making these changes to make sure that taking lessons we've learned from the past and moving forward, make sure we don't repeat those same mistakes again.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are you going to say something, Vice Mayor?
Yes, just to answer Councilman Diaz's question regarding the people that sometimes get dropped from the waiting list it's also the responsibility of the applicant when they move or they change phone numbers to go into the office and say, I'm going to be moving from this address to this other address. So if you, send anything by mail to me, I have a new mail address, and that's how it works. And if they don't do it, we sent and the housing authority sends the letter to the old address, and they're not there, and they don't receive it, and they get dropped from the list. And they keep a record of all the letters that they've been sending out. That's all.
Thank you.
Micah, you done with your report?
I am.
Okay. We'll go to number 4, housing resolutions. Consideration possible action on Housing Resolution 2020-11-14, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Nogales approving the HUD fair market rents and flat rent payment standards for FY 2021 for Santa Cruz County, Arizona, for all bedroom sizes.
So moved. Second.
Discussion.
Could we have an overview of this, Mayor, please?
Yeah, Micah?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
If
An
you have-
overview?
So the
No.
fair market rent is set by a HUD for each fiscal year. And I can kind of give you what the new rates are going to be for the next fiscal year for the studio through 4-bedroom units here. They're an increase between 4.5% to 4.9% across the board here. The efficiency or the studio apartments is going to go up from 533 to 557. The 1-bedroom unit will go up from 571 to 598. The
It goes
2-bedroom
from I'm sorry,
increases
what
from
goes from
752
571 to what?
to 788.
Micah, could you repeat again all of them, please? Could you repeat them?
Sure. So the efficiency or studio apartments go from 533 to 557. 1-bedroom units increase from 571 to 598. 2-bedroom increases from 752 to 788. 3-bedroom increase from 1,015 to 1,065. And 4-bedroom increases from 1,019 to 1,069. Those are the fair market rents, which will be used to determine the Section 8 or the Housing Choice Voucher Program. The low-income rent program operates at 80% of those values.
And this is established by the federal government?
This is established by the federal government by HUD for Santa Cruz County,
All right.
Arizona.
Okay.
So the Section 8 pays 80% of that? Is that what you said?
The low-income program will pay 80%. So for instance, if the 2-bedroom, if we did a 2-bedroom public housing unit in one of the ANZA, the Casas de ANZA, maybe on Guerrero or on Kitchen, they would pay 80% of 788. Would be considered a fair market rent. And so they would.
For low income.
For low income,
Something like that.
and the people
For
would
low
pay,
income.
and the people would pay the other 20%?
There would be no other paying the other 20%. That's what we have a flat rent system in our policy. That would be the flat rent. The flat rent is at 80% of the fair market rent. So for low income housing, there's a flat rent, which is 80% of the fair market rent.
So who pays that 80%?
So the 80% is what we determine to be the fair market
I understand.
value for that, right? And so it would be, it could be a combination of HUD paying, the HUD subsidy paying for it.
Okay.
It depends on the income of the individual, how much they were going to be able to pay. Some families have paid zero, and some families will pay, maybe they pay all $700 of it, whatever the case may be, right? Depends. It's dependent on the income of the household.
So you have a federal established guidelines, a sliding scale to determine what the payment will be. There's no discretion on that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all set in the book.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mike, just a question, but any way you look at it, the HUD is paying 80% of it, or that 80% then they will pay a percentage of that 80%, and then the person would pay the other percentage?
No, again, I apologize if I wasn't clear in this. The 80% is simply how much we are saying that the unit is worth. That's the flat rent that we are charging.
That's the
We
total
are
amount.
only gonna, yeah, we are only gonna, for a 2-bedroom unit, we are only going to charge 80% of the fair market rent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like you said, on the sliding scale, it depends on how much money they make, they will pay a certain percentage of that 80%, right?
30%.
Correct, correct.
Call for the question.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before we go to the next resolution, I think we already approved the 5-year plan back in February of this year. Why is it back on the agenda?
Ask him.
Micah, were you here in February of this year? Because the Housing Authority brought this resolution for adoption and approval back in February, the 5-year plan.
So, Mr. Vice Mayor, what we're looking at here is the 5-year action plan. And when I look through our system, and actually this is something I had a conversation with Herb on, we were missing the board resolution approving the 5-year action plan. I believe what was approved in February was, as you mentioned, the 5-year plan, but this is the action plan, which is slightly different, but nonetheless, not a very clear naming convention by HUD.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, consideration possible action on Housing Resolution 2020-11-15, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Nogales approving and adopting the 5-year action plan 2020-2024.
A second.
Discussion.
Can you give us an overview?
Micah, could you give us an overview?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Councilor Verona. So we went through 2 steps here. First up, we had a meeting with the Resident Advisory Board back in September 11th. We went through kind of what the Resident Advisory Board wanted to see as improvements to their housing authority. And then we posted a public notice, again, in keeping with HUD regulations, we can post a public notice that's going to display the copy of that as well too in there. And so what you'll see in here, the kind of things we're trying to emphasize is we've placed a lot of emphasis on improving the interiors of units. A lot of the work orders that I see have to do with interior wear and tear. A lot of it can just be, we have some older units, and so we wanted to take some of the capital fund, which is what the 5-year action plan does, to allocate capital funds. We want to make sure they're allocated towards improving the interiors of the units, so that way it makes them more livable. And I think at the end of the day too, it'll save costs by not having to go ahead and repair these things that are because they're kind of older and then deteriorating from age. So you'll see a lot of things in there. This is a year-over-year plan here from 2020 all the way out into 2024. And includes everything from improving the sidewalks, and it's an outdoor area, but it's something that we got things a little bit on our react, was having a lot of the rise-ups and trip hazards in our sidewalks. Kitchen areas, improve the kitchen and bathroom remodeling. Excuse me. The roofing, we've already had some progress on that already this past year. Had some of our units and the roofing is going on there. But this is just an area to kind of focus on the inside, on security, on safety, as well as making sure that the items that we got dinged down in our last react are being addressed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Micah, the 5-year plan that you submitted back in February, was that approved by HUD?
Yes.
Any more discussion?
Yes, and
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the 5-year action plan, what we're looking at right here, is our plan of action for how we're going to go and allocate capital funds. And so in order to have the capital funds released to us, HUD needs a resolution from the Board of Commissioners approving this 5-year action plan. And they did not have a resolution, it'll be brought up to the commissioners for the 5-year action plan.
Got it, thank you. And how about the annual plans? That's gonna be due pretty soon, right?
Correct, yeah. In order to get it's one of those things that you have to do one and then the other, and so in order to get the annual plan, the 5-year plan, they need a copy of the 5-year action plan. And so this is kind of the first step of getting that done. That way we can go ahead and continue the annual plan and the 5-year plan.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
just, Michael, you know, with all these improvement, financially, housing authorities, how's our accounts and all that, are you getting all this through HUD, all the repairs and all that?
Mr. Maldonado, so the capital fund program, these are capital funds that HUD provides to housing authorities.
Okay,
And so these will not come from our general budget or our capital operating funds. These are from the capital fund program.
okay. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Consideration possible action on housing resolution 2020-11-16, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Nogales approving the application for the 2020 Emergency Safety and Security Grant.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
An overview?
Yes, council members and Mr. Mayor, the Emergency Safety and Security Grant is an opportunity for us to receive some funding to go and kind of address two specific areas. The first area being carbon monoxide poisoning. Right now, we don't have enough operable detectors in our units, and so this is an opportunity for us to get some funding to be able to put operable detectors in our units, and then also to address some safety and security concerns, specifically in regards to lighting. So what this will allow us to do is apply for some funding. Obviously, there's no guarantee that we will receive anything. This is kind of an opportunity for us to kind of go out and apply for a grant and hope that we get some funding. I think we could definitely use some funding, especially in regards to lighting. So there's two elements that are part of this process. The first is a civil rights certification that has to be approved by the mayor, that you're abiding by all civil rights regulations and appropriate federal and state and local laws in that regard. And then the second is a narrative documentation to talk about the crime and security issues in Nogales Housing Authority. I believe in your packets will be a sample narrative I wrote up. If you have any questions or any insight, anything you want to change, that, be happy to change. Basically, just want to address that lighting has a proven crime deterrence, and when we improve our lighting, that makes things safer, it makes things more enjoyable for our residents. And so we want to hopefully devote some resources from this grant to address that.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Micah, is this a HUD grant?
Yes.
Yes. Can't it be used for like sanitizing the apartments also?
So, Mr. Vice Mayor, the requirements, the eligibility things for this grant do not include those sanitizations or things like that. It's specifically regards to crime and safety, and so the health safety measures that kind of delved into is carbon monoxide. But when I looked through that, the application process and the eligibility process, unfortunately, sanitization or things regarding the prevention and stopping the spread of COVID wasn't part of that.
How much is this grant for?
So there's, I'm hoping to receive, we're gonna put in an application for about $250,000 is what we're gonna ask for. How much of that or if all of that we receive back will be determined by HUD and how they allocate that. But we're gonna request $250,000.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilman Moreno.
Thank you, Thank you, Mayor. Mike, I noticed here that one of the whereases here says, including measures necessary to address crime and drug-related activities. You said the lighting for possibility of crime, but what are you doing or what have you done, or is there a problem that you need to address with drug-related activity?
Drug-related activity, I don't know if there's anything we do specifically regards to that. Right now, we simply cooperate with the law enforcement authorities. We provide information that we're able to provide. I haven't seen anything that gives me a lot of concern specific to drug-related problems. I took that language from sample languages when we're looking at how other housing authorities have applied for similar grants and took that language from their resolutions.
So this is a cut and paste resolution.
It's a lots of cutting and lots of pasting. I don't take it from only one source, but I like to go look around and see how other housing authorities have done things and try to take their lessons learned and make sure I'm not, making things up as I go along.
Well, I can see, but it kind of raises a flag for me as a concern that you put drug-related activities. I wouldn't think you would put it in there unless there was a concern over here. Now you're telling me that you don't believe that there's a concern, so why would you put it in there?
I don't know if there is concern. I don't think I'm in a position to be able to say one way or the other whether or not there's concern, because I don't have a law enforcement capacity. What I do think is a concern, though, is lighting and having adequate lighting. And I think anywhere you increase lighting and increase visibility in areas, if anywhere that happens, you're always going to improve public safety no matter what. And that's what I'm trying to. That's kind of the heart of what we're trying to do. The Emergency Safety and Security Grant is a grant that's designed to improve safety and address drug-related crime as well as other related crime too. So, because that's the heart of the Emergency Safety and Security Grant, is focusing on drug-related issues and other crime-related issues too. I want to at least include that language in there because it's part of the original grant design.
Okay, I understand, but your former sentence here indicates that it's law enforcement's responsibility, and I don't think it's just law enforcement's responsibility. It's a dual responsibility between yourself and law enforcement to make sure that that kind of activity is not happening at the housing authority. It's that kind of activity that has brought down many housing authorities throughout the country because the housing projects have become related to this drug activity. And we don't want that in our community. So this has to be dual responsibility. Not just law enforcement, but you are also responsible for it.
Correct.
I'm a little confused, Hector. Maybe you can help me here with this.
Well, there's a policy at the housing authority. It's called a one strike you're out, and it deals with people with drug activity at the housing authority. If they get caught, with drugs or selling drugs, they lose they not only go to jail, but they lose their housing, and they can't come back within the next 5 years. They can reapply.
That's correct, Mr. Vice Mayor. And again, because I'm not in the law enforcement as to what I know from my records, and we have not had to remove individuals from the housing for drug-related offenses. We've had a couple of tenants be removed by law enforcement authorities, but it wasn't a result of anything we had to do on our end. And so I want to be careful to say one way or the other definitively that we have or don't have a drug-related problem in public housing. With the data that I see it, I don't see a major drug-related problem. But again, I'm not law enforcement, so I can't speak authoritatively on that issue.
And I was reading through one of the HUD regulations that they're doing away with that one strike you're out policy. Is that correct? Or is that just...
Can you repeat that one more time?
The HUD's doing away with the one strike you're out policy. And I don't know, now that that Arizona has that passed that 207 proposition, I don't know if that's going to affect any housing authorities.
So we have actually had a couple of phone calls right in the office with regards to Prop 207 passing. And we remain a smoke-free facility, and so we still have the ability to remove tenants if they violate the smoke-free facility guidelines. So no matter the substance, we don't allow any kind of smoking at any time, whether it be cigarettes or marijuana or anything like that. We don't allow smoking on properties. But it's a kind of a wait and see with regards to the one strike policy. HUD appears to be moving away from that. I'm waiting to kind of find final guidance from HUD in that regard. And once HUD issues their final notice on that, we'll obviously adjust accordingly to whatever HUD guidelines.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, it brought up another question, but I'll bring that up under future agenda items, Mayor. I've concluded.
All right. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Future agenda items? Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. Micah, here again, you brought up another subject here. On this 207, I think you need to send us a summary report because I don't think 207 doesn't have to do in its entirety with smoking.
No.
There's tablets, there's oils, there's chews, there's a lot of other things that's involved with it. It's not just smoking it, okay? So I think maybe you can get together with Mr. Massey and our city manager here and come up with a summary of what is this so that when we go out, we can explain clearly what the law is. So maybe you can, at our next meeting or whenever, give the council so we're knowledgeable about what 207 has as an impact to the housing authority.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else? Nothing else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Everybody? All right.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. All right, Michael. Please adjourn.